Hi guys, this topic is a strong one. So let me know in the comments, you can hear me okay? I'm just gonna check my comments. Hello beloveds, hello. Just gonna take a look at your comments to make sure that the sound is okay. I set an intention for a very clear transmission. I invoke the goddess Saraswati, one of the goddesses that I love. She's the goddess of divine speech, manifestation through a spoken word, divine wisdom, and all beautiful creative arts. So I feel really, really close to Saraswati. And I invoked her to have her presence during this transmission. Time to fly is the Queen of Dragons, Jennifer says. Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, Jennifer. I recently reconnected with my dragon energy, you guys. And dragons, they're from 7th dimension. They are such a beautiful energy to work with. And when I invoked the dragon energy, mine came through as a beautiful black dragon. And I went to a mystical shop a week ago, and I found this dragon. Maybe on another live stream, I will bring her. I feel it's a feminine dragon, but it's like this black with regal blue necklace. It's amazing. It's amazing. That's right. That's right. I am talking about dragons. If for some of you it's a little bit too far out there, just wait a couple of years and you will be invoking your own dragons. I can promise you. With the speed of evolution of consciousness, we become more and more open and receptive to the mystical, and then eventually the membrane between the mystical and the physical begins to blur, and you begin to see everything as mystical, right? So welcome to everyone who is joining. I have a feeling it's going to be a strong transmission. I feel the energy is running through me very strongly. So my intention is to stay grounded and really to share from the heart. I'm not here to tell you how to be or who to be. My intention is always to share from my heart and from my personal journey. And maybe some of you will recognize this great transition that you either just stepping onto, or you're right in the thick of it, or you recently just made the transition, and this reality is so fresh and it's so new. And even though this live stream will be specifically for women, gentlemen who are joining, I'm honored that you're joining, and I actually encourage you to stay, because I believe you will receive a lot of insight into a woman's journey. And if you ever gonna love a woman that is awakened woman, a woman that is doing, living her purpose, it is only a matter of time when she will be going through this great archetypal transition. So I say this live stream will be for both genders, for men and for women. And, insight into a women's world. It's really, really powerful, right, you guys? So for those of you who maybe the first time they meet me, they're like, who is this woman? My name is Katerina Satori. I am originally from Russia, and I'm American by choice, Russian by birth, American by choice, and I'm galactic in my essence. I'm a galactic soul, just as you are. I'm just own it fully and share more and more of my galactic self lately, especially. So my work in the world is focused on empowerment and enlightenment. This is what my heart is beating for, to assist this great, great evolutionary time on our planet, when people remember their divine essence, when people step on the path of their own personal legend. So this is my work in the world, you guys, and how I do it through different classes, live events, personal clients, all kind of variety. And I do these live streams because often people ask me, why are you doing this live streams, Katerina? It's my contribution to the world. It's my way of saying, this is how I pay forward. And it also gives me a deep sense of fulfillment to share. Every live stream is healing for me, because every live stream I give something a voice that have been deep in my heart, in hope that it will touch at least one soul. And because when you serve one, you serve the whole. So darlings, this is a little introduction, and I'm curious what draw you to this topic. What draw you to the topic? Let me know in the comments. Are you going through a transition from a warrior goddess to benevolent queen? Are you feeling the change? Because this is a change of archetypes, you guys. You know, it's a change of specific way of being, how you are operating in the world as a warrior goddess. And then you're shifting identity. You're shifting how you do things, how you be in the world, how you express yourself. So it's a massive shift of identity, and the transition, change of these archetypes takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it happens in a few years, you guys. For me, my transition began 3 years ago. 3 years ago. So I see on average 2 year, 3 year transition. And because you are changing on a cellular level, you are rewiring patterns, you're rewiring your way of attracting things to yourself, you know? And so it's a really powerful transition. So let me play some beautiful music for you guys. Hold on, where was it? While you're joining. Yeah. So before I begin speaking about transition, I wanted to take us back a little bit. What happened before a woman steps in the archetype of the warrior queen, warrior goddess? What happened before? Because most women start as young girls, and they start as young girls, innocent and carefree and full of hope. And they're very idealistic and pure. And something happens. Something happens on a young woman's journey, that purity is taken away from her. And it's an archetypal journey, you guys. It's an archetypal journey. So one of the things, you know, like for those of you who have children, right, especially young girls, it's something that you cannot protect, something you cannot oversee. Every young woman will go through the first initiation into adulthood, and usually through bursting her bubble of naivete, right, of that innocence, through meeting her first betrayal, her first heartbreak, right? Her first loss that takes her away from that naivete and introduces her to the jungle we call life. And depends on your journey. You know, I got thrown into that jungle really early age. You know, maybe some of you know my story. I really saw things that no child should see. Since really early age, I grew up with 5 different stepdads, and one more insane than another. So my childhood was full of uncertainty, violence, and abuse. And my bubble of innocence got burst at really young age. which pushed me into developing, this the shield around my heart, the shield around my emotions. And I developed this deep, primal mistrust in masculine at a very early age. And I had all the reasons to do so, all the reasons. And the gift of that chapter was that because I shielded myself emotionally, I shielded my heart, I had to go internal to find my security from within. So I became very introverted on my true self level. Externally, I was extroverted because that was my way of keeping myself safe, right? I became a people pleaser, became a very, very nice girl on the outside. But deep inside, I was deeply introverted and deeply shut down emotionally. And that shutdown emotionally actually forced me to go internal and to study, study the mysteries of the universe. I became so hungry for spirit, for understanding of this world. Why are we here? What's my life purpose? So I was on the search of my life purpose since very, very young. And when I stepped into adulthood, like early 20s, late 20s, when I began discovering the power of my own sexuality, I felt like I tapped into this superpower that the women have. And little did I know that that power had to be earned. That power had to be managed. I operated from a place of unconscious, ran by my wound patterns, by trauma from the childhood. And I used my sexuality as a weapon, as a shield. And I got aware of my sexuality at a really, really young age. Age 12, I became aware that men attracted to my external self. And a way of, once again, using it as a shield and using it as a punishment of the masculine side, the worst side of the masculine that I saw in my childhood. I was stuck in that way for over a decade. And externally, especially when I moved to United States at the age of 23, and when I came here, you guys, some of you once again know that story. I came to United States with $3 in my pocket, knowing not a single soul. And I came here, I put everything on the line. And my dream was just to get here. I was happy to work 2-3 jobs. And, some of the simplest jobs like scrubbing the floors in hotels or working, as a waitress. I didn't really care because I saw it as a land of great, great opportunity. And it was absolutely all right with me to start small and to start humble. But I threw myself in achievement. And for the next 10 years of my life, I was pursuing the great American dream. And deeper and deeper stepping into my warrior goddess archetype. And if I could go back to that chapter of my life and talk to myself, I would probably just encourage that younger self to spend a little bit more time with my own heart, but I didn't know how. Instead, I was developing my intellect. That was my main priority at that time. So one of the signs of the warrior goddess, they're highly intellectual women, right? They're really into their minds, and they develop their minds once again as a shield to protect a very vulnerable heart. that met betrayal, that met abuse, that met deep loss. And I remember the first time when I felt I found my match in a man. You know, it was a challenge for me to meet somebody on my level that I felt, who could meet me intellectually, who could meet me on a business level, who could meet me on a physical level. You know, and I remember when I met that man, I was 28, so quite late, right? And I thought, this is it. This is my big love. And I experienced my very first heartbreak, which turned out to be the biggest blessing of my life, because it cracked my heart open. It cracked my heart open. And I couldn't heal from that heartbreak for a really long time, for 2 years. You know, and I already studied Tony Robbins and self-development gurus, and I had pretty decent transformational toolbox at that time, you guys. You know, I thought I knew how to fix myself. And I was at loss when the first heartbreak entered my life. And my first depression entered my life. And I did not know at that time that I was trained how to become a master of compassion. I didn't know that that title existed. I didn't know that that role, that opportunity was available for me. My training in mastery of compassion began then. Because before I met my darkness, before I met my first depression, you know, I never understood how people could be that lost in their own mind, in their own pain. You know, like no matter the level of trauma I experienced as a child, I developed strong will to climb out of any darkness and to, you know, focus my mind on the positive and read inspirational books and find some nourishment for my soul. But the funny thing is, whenever you enter a new stage in your life, whatever tools that used to work for you stop working, and you feel at loss, you feel completely incapable, you feel confused about what happens, you are in the dark. So that was my very first meeting with the darkness. And I remember I ran to India to heal my heart. And I went there by myself. That was 10 years ago. I went there by myself. And the moment I stepped over the plane, you know, that scent of incense and human sweat that hits you so strong the moment you step out of the plane in India. You either hate India or you love it. There is really no middle. And for me, it was like I was returning to my motherland. I was returning to my land where I spent so many lifetimes. So many lifetimes. And at that time, 10 years ago, I was so, like, I would be really annoyed by children. You know, I did not want to have children around me on the planes. They're, you know, crying would drive me crazy. And I never wanted to be a mother. I was like, nope, this is not for me. But when I came to India and I saw Indian children, my heart just melted and my heart began to open. And then the contrasting environment of India, you know, the huge poverty and the huge luxury at the same time was heartbreaking and heart healing at the same time. I remember asking my driver in India, I said, please take me to every single amazing temple that you know. I'm here for 2 weeks. I want to visit 12 temples. And he said, you're the first Westerner who ever asked me that. You know, my heart was guiding me to the place of worship, to the devotional sanctuary where can I simply be in the sound, in the field of prayer. So if some of you going through a difficult time and whatever tools you've got, they stop working, experiment with this one. Go to a place of worship. It doesn't matter what religion it is. Something about a place dedicated to communion with God, with Spirit, has an incredible healing effect on your aura. So I was sitting every night listening to the chants that I did not understand. And every night I felt a little bit better. I felt a little bit more whole. And next leap, when I came back from India, I got invited to go to my very first ayahuasca journey. That was 10 years ago, you guys. And ayahuasca, if some of you don't know, it's one of the strongest psychedelic plants on this planet Earth. It is almost 30,000-year-old tradition of Amazonian people. It's a visionary plant that connects you with your heart, with your soul, that helps you see your true origin. It has a way not only to heal your heart, but also to heal your mind, and helps you awaken the true spiritual essence. I remember I came to my first ceremony and everybody was sharing their intention, why they're there. And I said, I came here because I have a broken heart and it's time for me to heal that. Little did I know that that man who I thought was my soulmate, who I thought was my match, he gave me the biggest gift because he led me to my true love, which is the ayahuasca plant, my main spiritual teacher. If you guys, some of you comment, on what I share as words of great inspiration or wisdom, if whatever I share you consider wise, I'm here to give credit to where it's due. All this wisdom comes from sitting in hundreds and hundreds of plant ceremonies and meeting my shadow and meeting my darkness and holding the broken pieces of my heart and having this deep desire for wholeness, deep desire for truth, and not running away, not distracting myself with work or with numbing or with distractions, right? So I believe my journey began then. My true journey to wholeness, to healing began then. And I remember a couple years into working with the medicine, she began awakening my feminine essence. And she would be really, really direct with her messages, things like, Katerina, dress more feminine, speak more feminine, right? And I was really resistant to those messages because if you looked at me from the outside, I looked very feminine, but my energy was very masculine. My energy was survival, constantly on guard, constantly waiting for the attack to happen. And if it happens on a subconscious level, you cannot pick it up consciously. It's like your major blind spot. So when you are in the warrior goddess archetype, there are things about yourself that will be very difficult for you to accept and very difficult for you to see. So your soul, in its benevolence, will be sending you gentle guidance through teachers, sometimes through plants, sometimes through animals. Like when I welcomed my furry companion, Gracie, into my life, I feel I really dropped even deeper into my feminine essence through the nurturing love that I give to her and I receive from her. So animals can be a beautiful blessing in our life. How are you receiving all of this? I know it's a little bit of a background story and it all makes sense because I believe through the story is how we connect, Through the story is how we connect on a soul level. So when you're in the warrior goddess archetype, beloveds, you usually build an external security. You know, you're so fragile internally. You're so afraid to look into the wounds of your feminine soul that you just focus on building this very, very tough exterior, you know, so you excel in business. I was natural at entrepreneurship. You know, my entire time in US, the moment I tasted the path of entrepreneurship, there was no way back. So I excelled in business. I excelled in launching one business after another and feeling invincible. I was incapable of intimacy at that time. So I remember even saying things, you know, I was so guarded at that time. I remember even trying to, you know, have relationships like a man. It was my words. I said, I'm going to have a relationship just like a man, with no emotional involvement. So my subconscious was always speaking about these deep, deep wounds. But it took some time for me to sum up courage to look at them. Not only look at them and then step on the way of healing. So I was in my warrior goddess archetype for about 8 years. Until my body collapsed. Because something happens with the feminine body when emotions are not processed, when emotions are suppressed year after year after year. That unprocessed grief and that unprocessed pain will localize in one part of your body, and specifically in the part of your body that represents your feminine essence. That was my experience. So one day I went to a feminine doctor for a checkup, and I didn't get a good news. I actually got a report that said, if the cancer is level 5, you have precancerous cells on a late stage 3. So we gotta operate. We gotta do a surgery. And I remember I went straight into denial and running away, which was such a tactic for me. The same way I would avoid intimacy, the same way I would avoid dealing with problems with my health. And I remember I took a trip to Europe, and I took that report and I shuffled it one of my drawer, you know, one of my cabinets. And I left for 2 months. And during those travels, something unlocked in me. You know, something healing happens when you go to a different country when nobody knows you. And it's almost like this feeling that you can find yourself again in a crowd of strangers. And that was my way of finding myself, making that first step. I remember I had my very first meditation in the park in Rome. And my very first time where I actually let myself cry in public and connect with my heart on a deep, deep level. So as you see, the journey of softening for warrior goddess is a long one. And a lot of times it's a lonely journey. I came back from Europe and I threw myself into holistic healing. Some wisdom of my soul told me that it's foolish to address the situation only on physical level. I knew the root was energetic. I knew the root was spiritual. So I threw myself into all kind of metaphysical studies. You know, when your body breaks down and falls apart, things begin shift into perspective. You know, you really begin to listen to the loud, sometimes quiet voices of your heart, of your soul. I'm going to take a pause and take a look at your comments to make sure the connection is still strong. Let me see. Okay, you guys, you're still with me. Just a little pause and I will continue. So my healing began when I came back, and I just threw myself into holistic healing, you guys. I began juicing and fasting and IV therapies and everything under the sun. And that was my day protocol. And my evening protocol was reading energy healing books, meeting with different healers, right? And what really put everything over the edge in a good way is when I got a video by Louise Hay that was called "You Can Heal Your Life." And I remember watching her story, how she, at the age of 50, after being a spiritual teacher and a spiritual leader all her life, at the age of 50, she got cancer. So trust me, it was a great initiation for her, right? And a great crisis of faith. And I believe it's a part of the journey to have a crisis of faith. Because if your faith doesn't go through a crisis, you're not pursuing your personal legend. You're not pursuing your higher purpose. Crisis of faith is a part of a initiatory experience. The only way your faith gets strong and unmovable like a mountain is when you go through a ring of fire. And when everything you thought who you are and everything you thought universe to be is questioned. And you feel like there is no ground underneath your feet. You question God, you question yourself. This is a real crisis of faith. And I've had several of those, you guys, because at different areas of your life, when you begin to open yourself up to expansion and to really bringing life to that area of your life, you will be required to go through a spiritual initiation, entering a new level of consciousness, new level of wisdom, new level of understanding. So the old identity cannot hold it, right? And you will go through the void, the crisis of faith. So Louise Hay had a crisis of faith at the age of 50. And, you know, when she was sharing how she began healing her world, applying her own tools that she was teaching millions of people, applying her own tools to her health crisis. And she was sharing that she finally connected the abuse that she had when she was a little girl before the age of 9, and how her subconscious mind buried that memory and the healing didn't happen. So the wound was festering. Imagine the trauma is not healed. It's like festering wound in your subconscious mind. So it's only going to matter of time. It's going to erupt, right? So she was sharing the story, how she was going through forgiveness process. And when I was listening, you know, I just broke down and I cried for hours like I've never cried in my life. I wailed like a wounded animal on the floor. And it is so healing for everybody, but especially for a feminine soul, because this live stream is about a woman's journey. You know, something happens when a woman gives herself permission to cry the tears she never cried. And to veil like a wounded animal, you know, without restriction, without apology, without trying to be so fucking nice. You know what I mean? And I believe that moment on that floor, in that grief, I connected with my wild feminine for the first time. You know, that essence of a woman, that essence of the woman that is capable of rising from any ashes, is the wild feminine that cannot be caged, that cannot be controlled, that cannot be dominated through patriarchal ways. So a deeper healing began at that time. I began going through my memory files and looking for the places of unforgiveness, you know. And I remember making the first connection with my womb as a portal of consciousness, not just as a place to let a man in and give my body for somebody's pleasure, or give my body because I feel that's the only way I have a power over man. I connected to my womb as a portal of consciousness that was fragmented through so many years of trauma. And the healing began even deeper, even deeper. So as you see, there is stages of that great journey. And the healing continued, you guys, because in a matter of 7 to 8 months, even though I had to go through a surgery because my condition was at such late stage, natural healing was not effective enough. It helped me to learn so much about the body, to learn so much about the spiritual healing, that I began my first brand. You know, this is how my ministry started. This is how my business started. Simply through turning on the camera and sharing with absolute strangers a part of my life, in hope that, you know, it will inspire at least one soul. And I had no agenda. I had nothing to sell. I had nothing to offer. I simply had my journey, you know, and I had this desire to share. And what I found, that my healing accelerated through my sharing with others. And that was another big epiphany, you know, that oftentimes we launch our businesses, we launch our creations, because that's a way of healing for us. They say if you want to master something, you teach it. I also say if you want to completely heal something, you serve. So I discovered the first glimpses of fulfillment when you begin to live with the contribution to others. And I believe my journey towards a benevolent queen archetype began then. I was still deeply in my warrior self, you know, and when I watch those videos, you guys, some of them I'm gonna keep for my files, you know, because my videos were far from perfect, far from effortless. A lot of times people see my videos and they say, you're so natural, but they don't see the 3 years and hundreds of videos that I've done. They were awkward. That were just way too much makeup, you know, way too much shielding, way too much forceful energy trying to prove myself so hard, as a warrior will do. Because the warriors constantly have to protect, have to shield. And when you step into an archetype of benevolent queen, you drop that. There is nothing to prove. There is nothing to hide. You emanate knowledge of who you are and what you're here to do and who you're here to serve. It's a very radical shift of frequency that happens. But before we get there, that's how my ministry began. And there were many, many reinventions, you guys, many reinventions. And since then, I've launched 3 different online brands. And I gave myself permission to continually reinvent and to allow the speed of evolution of my consciousness be reflected in the evolution of my offerings, in the evolution of my business. You know, I don't believe in niching yourself or, you know, building something and then being so afraid to let it go. Give yourself permission to evolve and be okay to let go of identity that you outgrew. When you are in the warrior goddess archetype, you have difficulty being in women's circles. I did. Even idea of going to a woman-only retreat would give me like jitteries. My understanding of being in a circle of women was that it's too much estrogen, too much talking, and I do not want to do anything with that. I had amazing girlfriends, also warrior goddesses, warrior women. You know, a handful of them, solid, strong women, self-made. And I thought, I'm good. I only worked with men in my business. All my clients were men. I did not resonate with women. I considered them, a lot of them are too much estrogen, you know, complaining, cannot handle their lives. Authentic talk, as I promised you. The external reaction, my reaction to other women was a reflection of unhealed wound with the feminine. So before you can fully step into the archetype of a benevolent queen, there will be initiation called healing of your feminine wound. And you hear, maybe you heard some of my live streams that I've done with Yvonne de la Flor, so many of them. Why, you guys? Because you cannot skip that stage. You cannot. There is just no way. You know, it's there's this great healing that is required of us. It's the healing with the feminine first, and then the healing with the masculine. Sometimes you heal both at the same time. So my healing with the feminine began when I leaned into my transparency. I leaned into my vulnerability so deeply. And I began addressing my limiting beliefs. I began questioning and inquiring, what was the fear of the feminine in me? What was that unease in my body when I was around women's circle? What was that agitation and that, you know, annoyance that I felt in my body when I heard the term sisterhood? I had to inquire that. I had to look at that. I didn't want to. I wanted to continue to crush it in business, and I wanted to continue to serve my male clients. You know, and my excuse was, men get me. I get men. I'm very logical, very analytical woman. I can speak their language. I'm a warrior. Recognize yourself? even a little bit, if you're honest. So the great benevolent spirit, kept bringing me to my shamanic path, and I kept sitting in ceremonies and healing my heart. And especially with ayahuasca, it's such a feminine spirit. It's a divine goddess spirit. The age of 30, when I was 30, she cracked me open even in a deeper way. And I had a vision of me being pregnant. And you guys, it was so powerful because until the age of 30, there was a complete no. Like I would not even entertain that thought of me having a child, ever. And at the age of 30, at one of the ayahuasca ceremonies, I saw that vision, and something in me unlocked even deeper. And I heard the wisdom of the mother goddess that says, Katerina, there is a reason why you chose a female body. You always have a choice to go through this way or not. It is not, written in stone. There is a free will and there is destiny. And until you surrender your personal will to the will of the divine, you always will be presented this choice. Right now, you guys, I serve the divine. My life does not have a personal will. I surrendered my life into service of the spirit. And how does it look like? Every time my ego begins to fight and assert on a particular plan, I remember that I serve humanity. I remember that I serve the whole, that I serve divine. But it's a stage of evolution where you arrive to, and I teach an art of surrender, where you realize the futility of holding on to any plan. You realize the wisdom of the great design. You stop tapping into your divine blueprint. You stop tapping into your multidimensional self. And you see that the great design, and you're part of this great design. And then you willingly surrender your life into the service of the higher will. And it's a leap of consciousness. So I kept awakening this feminine parts of myself, and it got reflected in my leadership. It got reflected in my business. I am not a mother in a physical form. I constantly birth creations. My creativity is my birthing process. And this is the way how I channel that energy through creativity. Not every woman chooses to be a mother. And every woman can tap into the archetype of a mother and give birth to her creations. This is where I find myself now. So the next leap was healing of my feminine wound, and I don't really have the time to go deeper into the specifics, how it happened. I've done many, many live streams about it with Yvonne. But how do you know that healing began? It's the shift of your demographic. Women began magnetizing to me. And in a matter of 7 to 8 months, my entire private practice went from 100% male clients to 80% female. So you can always track what's happening in your external reality as a reflection of what happened in your internal reality. External follows the internal only 100% of the time, how Yvonne likes to say. 100% believe that. And then next leap of consciousness you begin to deepen your healing for the feminine, where you actually see yourself as transcending any competition with other women. You transcend comparison. You transcend competition. You begin to see that there's women around you who are also transcending those low vibration patterns. You begin to see them as sisters on the path. You begin to see that these women on the path, they serve the same source. They serve the same goddess. And then the next step happens when you connect with the Divine Mother. We were fed this patriarchal image of God since we were born. You read any sacred texts. God, He created the world. God, He punished the man. God, He was conditioned to us from the very, very early age. When you make a real soul contact with the Divine Mother, you are never the same. You're altered forever. You're altered forever. You step into a completely different reality of communion with the Mother that you felt you never had. Because no earthly mother can ever give you the Divine Mother love that only Mother God can give you. So it's a great return. You see, it's an archetypal journey, you guys, as I shared with you from the beginning. It's a great return to the place of great remembrance that everything started with divine feminine. Divine feminine birthed the masculine. So my connection with Divine Mother is truly profound and incredibly deep. Maybe one day I'll share that story. But I felt like I returned to God, I finally returned to that communion with Divine Spirit. And yeah, you guys, there's so many little chapters I want to go to, and this live stream is going to be 5 hours long if I do. So I am mindful of, being grounded in this share and not to overload this transmission. Just be mindful of the chapters. Then the healing of the wound with the masculine begins. And when I say benevolent queen, it's not enough to claim that title and put it on your Facebook page. What I always resonate with is Princess Diana, when she said, if I want to be a queen, I want to be a queen of people's hearts. To me, a true essence of a woman that embodies that queen archetype is that people that she serves see her as a queen of their hearts. Not as a ruling entity, not as an unreachable ideal, but as somebody who serves them with purity of her heart and who puts people's interest in her heart and who embodies and models what is possible when a woman takes ownership of her wounds. When a woman stops seeking liberation through a man. when a woman stops seeking easy ride, a shortcut through sugar daddies, through staying in a relationship that her soul is dying, but she's afraid to lose external security. And she's lying to herself every day when she goes to bed with a man who feels like a stranger. A true queen accepts initiation by fire with honor, with humility, with deep surrender. And she doesn't have to advertise that title. She doesn't have to prove that title. She's not interested in a title. She's interested in making her queendom strong, making her queendom thriving, and making her queendom truly benevolent with the interest of the people in heart. A true benevolent queen will not rest until she sees every person that she serves step into his or her sovereignty. So she is relentless in the pursuit of that purpose. When a queen archetype enters your life, you go through a process of deep simplification. You begin to question the attachments to labels, attachments to trying to prove yourself so hard once again. You transcend all of that. You begin to focus on what's truly important. You begin to build your legacy of love. And you begin to go through this beautiful process that's called integration, where every area of your life begins to synchronize. And your life begins to feel like a melody in tune with the melody of the universe itself. You begin to live a very harmonic life. You see everything in your life as sacred. And every person you come in contact with, you see sacred as well. When a benevolent queen archetype steps into your life, your boundaries become non-negotiable. You begin to see crystal clear through people's agendas, because you can see crystal clear through your ego agendas. And the more you take ownership of where you're coming from, the more you can see with great discernment who is your true ally and who is acting out of the parasite energy towards you. There is no benevolent queen without any boundaries. You begin to exercise the power of your no. You begin to be very selective with your yes. And you let go of any overgiving. You begin to let go of rescuing. You begin to let go of hiding some parts of who you are. You begin to become more and more authentic, transparent, genuine, and real. You know that the warrior self, that's still a part of your psyche as an archetype. It's there when it's required. If your queendom is attacked, right? through some kind of forces. And you must summon the courage and bring that warrior self. There is no question you can do that. And the warrior does not run you anymore. You also change how you create things. When you're in the warrior archetype, you create through conquering. You create through doing. You create through your masculine energy. By hustling, by competing, by slaying things. When you're in your benevolent queen archetype, you create through the power of your feminine essence. You stop chasing. You stop striving. You stop setting goals. You return deeper and deeper into your essence. You discover the power of your womb in a completely new way. You discover the power of your sexual energy, not as a weapon, not as a shield, but as a way of your powerful life force. Maybe you will even begin to practice sexual magic. You begin to tap into the true alchemy that lays in your body. And you begin to be very sacred about your sexual energy. Because you know that every man you let into your sacred portal, you're gonna just take every unprocessed cord that man has, every unhealed stuff that they bring. So you really become discerning who you let in the temple of your body. You become very discerning about your lovers. You become responsible for your sacred sexual energy. And when you do invite somebody in your temple, you honor that being as an incredible teacher, as a powerful divine masculine that came into your life. But that's another conversation. Maybe it's another live stream. Oh, beloveds, it's a journey, right? It's a journey. So when you are in the transition, whether in the beginning of a transition of the warrior goddess to benevolent queen, as your warrior self, you are so used to relying on yourself alone. You're so used to fight for everything. And it's really, really difficult for you to ask for help. It's really difficult for you to receive help, even though you want it intellectually. But energetically, emotionally, it triggers a deep trauma. Once again, it goes back to healing of the wound, the feminine and the masculine. I'm going to take another pause and to check your comment, just to glance at your comments. So, darlings, that's another evolution, is when you begin to inquire about your ability to receive from others, to receive from yourself, and then to receive from the universe itself. You begin to inquire. And that's another kind of a sign of a deeper healing with your own feminine, where you allow yourself to receive. And you find great strength in your ability to ask for assistance, your ability to allow others in, to allow other women in. And you begin to seek the community of other women. And you find a new level of nourishment from being around women's circles. Remember how I shared with you before? That used to be the most annoying and like terrifying experience for me, is to be locked in some kind of women's retreat or women's circle. True story. So this is another way of how you can track that your soul begins to heal, and you begin to find deep nourishment from being with other women, and by giving a voice, to the deep burdens that you carry as a woman on a leadership path. One of my favorite questions that I like to ask whenever I lead live events, life transformational events, one of the key questions I ask on a day one, I ask, why are you here? And a second question, what is the burden that you came here to let go? And there is a deep power of naming that burden and being witnessed by other women in your vulnerability. Because I can promise you, you rarely talk about your deepest burden in a spotlight of your leadership. You don't. And it's very rare to meet women who are on your level. On the level of leadership, the level of your evolution, to whom you feel safe and you can feel trust to share about the burden that you came to let go. And a lot of times, I say problems solve themselves when women gather and listen to each other. I hope somebody can write this down in the comments. Problems solve themselves when women gather and listen to each other. Validating each other's feelings, listening deeply with our bodies, without trying to fix masculine energy, without trying to offer a premature solution. But deep listening, empathic listening, is incredibly healing for a woman's soul. Thank you, Sahar. I appreciate you writing it down. How did you receive this transmission, beautiful women and man, if man is still here? How did you receive this? What resonated with you? I really hope that my story and this archetypal journey helped you see, all these points of evolution, these leaps of conscience that happen. And if I could go back to my younger self, I can do it when I do subconscious mind work on myself, when I do self-hypnosis and I travel through time into the past. I do this, you guys. And if I could do it, if I could time hop, right, in a literal way, and I could meet myself when I was just entering my transition to the archetype of a benevolent queen, I would look myself in the eye and I would say, Katerina, this journey is inevitable. It's written in the stars. You're going to make this transition. You're very stubborn. You used to be on your own. And if you allow other women in, your journey will be less turbulent, much, much sweeter. And it will actually not going to take that long. It's not going to take that long. So, beloveds, my call to action right now is for you, first of all, journal the insights that you received through this transmission. Really take it into your heart, even if you took away one insight. Write it down and contemplate and be with it. And my second call to action is, if some of you are ready to experience the true power of a woman's communion, if Angela, Flora, and myself are co-leading leadership initiation immersion next week. And we have one last spot. And I just feel, really guided to make that call for that woman that is waiting for that opportunity, that is calling for that opportunity. And this experience, what Yvonne is offering, Transcendental Rebirth, is so powerful. I believe every woman will greatly be transformed by having an advocate such as Yvonne. It's her life's work, her life's mission, to provide a container, to imagine, to enter this reality as a welcomed being, as a soul that is celebrated, as a soul that is encouraged, as a soul as wanted. I wasn't really wanted in this world. I almost got aborted. I was a child between abortions. And that early childhood trauma really scarred me, and one of the reasons why I was in my warrior self from the age of, I can't even remember. It's because this womb imprints was so strong, and the world was not a friendly place on a subconscious level. Whatever I would tell myself on a conscious level, it's 7%, 93% of your power is run by your subconscious mind. So, beloveds, it's a last in-person immersion that we are co-leading this year. And it's going to be in the beautiful, tranquil town of Idlewild, California. It's just a couple-hour drive, and it's going to be a very intimate group. I will post a link, but easiest thing, just click on my Facebook banner. It says Odyssey, and fill into it. The open enrollment is closed, so you will be asked to have a conversation with me if it calls you. And enrollment is going to close tomorrow at noon. We decided at noon we're going to close the door. So really, really rare opportunity, you guys, to be with two teachers and one wisdom keeper, a beautiful sacred container, to really take ownership of these splits of personality, splits of the psyche, and go through a rebirth as a divine feminine leader. Because nothing more beautiful to witness when a woman serves from the place of wholeness, when a woman serves from a place of embodied wholeness. On that note, I'm going to finish this transmission. For those of you who are going to watch the replay, thank you. I have no idea how long I went. It's all one eternal moment of now. And thank you for being here, and thank you for listening. Blessings from Divine Mother, from all the benevolent feminine ascended masters that came before us, the great spirits from the spirit world that watching over us. The feminine is rising in all of us, in men, in women, so men go through their own healing of their feminine wound. Isn't it so? So I feel there is a great healing that's happening on the planet right now. No matter how dark this matrix can look, if you know how to unplug your consciousness from the matrix reality and realize this illusion exists to serve you. You don't exist to serve an illusion. Never forget that. There's a great opportunity that we've been waiting all other incarnations, this lifetime, where we can consciously unplug from the matrix and begin to live as a full embodiment of Christ consciousness in our human form. What a great vision. What a great reality. Heaven and earth right here. So if you just joined, thank you for watching. It was a deep transmission, and I'm honored to have your presence. Blessings, and I love you.